morning, church. I pray that you guys are all having a great Wednesday. As a community, we've been apart for quite some time now, and I know that personally it's been taking a toll on me, and it's hard to feel connected to one another. And as I mentioned in my last video, I want to take some time each week to just say hi, to give any reopening updates that we might have, and to share some spiritual practices with you all. I recently just started reading this book called An Altar in the World by Barbara Brown Baker. This is a great guide to incorporating daily connection points with God in your everyday life. Over this week, I tried the very first practice in the first chapter that she writes about. She calls this practice the practice of waking up to God. This was a really great chapter about acknowledging that the house of God isn't just in a church building, but it's all around us. God's kingdom isn't restricted to a building. So she goes on to say, how had I forgotten that the whole world is the house of God? Who had persuaded me that God preferred four walls and a roof to wide open spaces? When had I made the subtle switch myself, becoming convinced that the church bodies and buildings were the safest and most reliable places to encounter the living God? The author challenges us not to put God in a box, but to go out and find God in his creation. So this is not to say that you can't find God in the church and that you can't connect with him in church. Of course you can, but he's not exclusively within those four walls. She goes on to say, people can encounter God under shady oak trees or riverbanks or at the top of mountains or on long stretches of barren wilderness. God shows up in the whirlwinds, the starry skies, the burning bushes, and strangers. When people want to know more about God, the Son of God tells them to pay attention to the lilies of the field and the birds of the air, the women kneading bread and the workers lining up for their pay. So this week, let's take a step back, friends, and look around us. Look for those places and people and experiences that you see God in. Look around the world that God has created and see that his house extends from one side of the universe to the other. We're unable to be in a church building right now, but that doesn't mean that we can't encounter the living God outside of our church walls. So this week, at the end of each day, you can start to take some time to write these moments down. To help you mark these places where you see God, like these benchmark moments. She calls them her little altars. It could be in a conversation that you had with your neighbor, or it can be on the 50th run around the block that you just did, or it can even be in some moments with your family and friends. I'll end with this quote from the author. I can set a little altar in the world or in my heart. I can stop what I am doing long enough to see where I am, who I am there with, and how awesome the place is. I can flag one more gate to heaven, one more patch of ordinary earth with ladder marks on it, where the divine traffic is heavy when I notice it and when I do not. I can see it for once instead of walking right past it, maybe even setting a stone or saying a blessing before I move on to wherever I am due next. Friends, I'd love to hear from you if you guys try this, so let me know. And I'm praying that you all have a great, blessed week.